I refused to split the lottery money with my coworker, even though we always played together. Am I the a-hole? Well, I guess that depends. When we say played together, did they have any stake in your tickets? We need some context. Let's jump into it.
The Bearded Take with Ethan X.
So I, 32 male, work in a small office, like 8 people total, pretty close knit, and we all know each other's business whether we want to or not. About a year ago, a few of us started casually playing the lottery together. Nothing official, no pool agreement, no shared account, just one of those, hey, I'm grabbing tickets, anybody want in kind of things. So most of the time, we'd throw in $5 or $10 when someone was going to the store. One of my coworkers, Dan, 35 male, was the most consistent about it. He'd organize it a lot, collect money, buy the tickets, send a picture in the group chat. But again, nothing formal, no rules, no standing agreement. Here's where things went sideways. About a month ago, I was at a gas station after work and decided to grab a couple lottery tickets on my own. Didn't text the group, didn't think anything of it. Just a random purchase. And I ended up hitting, not like life-changing millions, but enough to matter. $48,000 after taxes. Well, it might not be life-changing millions, but I can tell you if 48 grand fell into my pocket after taxes, I'd be pretty happy. When I realized, I was in shock. Told my family, obviously. Told one coworker I'm close with, and word got out pretty quickly after that. And that's when Dan came to me. At first, he was joking. Wow, so when are we celebrating our win? I laughed and said something like, yeah man, crazy, right? But he didn't drop it. Later that day, he pulled me aside and said, hey, so what's the plan for splitting it? I thought he was kidding. He wasn't. He said that since we've been basically always playing together, it was understood that wins were shared. I told him this wasn't one of those group tickets. I bought it myself, didn't take anyone's money, didn't even mention it. He said that didn't matter, that we had an unspoken agreement as a group. Now the office is split. Some people are saying, yeah, technically it's my ticket, but morally it's kind of messed up to not share since we've all been playing together for so long. Others are saying that's ridiculous. If no one put money into that specific ticket, then it's mine. Dan's taken it personally. He's been cold, making comments like, must be nice to forget who you came up with, and crazy how money shows people's true colors. Yeah, right. Here's the part that's messing with me though. There were times when he covered me. Like if I didn't have cash, he'd say, don't worry, I'll throw you in. I'd usually pay him back later, but not always immediately. And there have definitely been times I was included in tickets I didn't pay directly for that day. So now I'm sitting here wondering, did I unknowingly benefit from the same unspoken system before? And now I'm just winning on the side of it? So I've got some thoughts, but we've got a small update and then a big final update. So let's see what the small update is first. Dan sent me a Venmo request last night for $6,000. No message, just lottery share. And I haven't responded. Part of me feels like I don't owe him anything, but the other part of me is if the situation were reversed, would I feel like I got screwed? So am I the a-hole for keeping the money even if we didn't always play together? Well, first and foremost, I'd be really curious to know where he came up with $6,000. Like, how was that calculated? Unless that's the amount that was owed from the other tickets that were paid into or split or whatever. The other question that I have is, do these people have a gambling problem? Because not only do we have a gambling pool at work, and it's highly competitive, and people take it very personally, but also outside of the gambling pool that we're having at work, we're also just buying lottery tickets in our downtime, and we finally won a nice $48,000 after tax, which not bad. But now we've pissed off our coworkers, and particularly Dan, who has covered you on a few occasions, and it's questionable whether or not you are actually square with him in terms of the amount that he's thrown in for you on your behalf. My initial feeling is that if you are square with him, technically speaking, you don't owe him anything. If you are buying a ticket for $10 and you have 10 people that are splitting it, and I'm using even numbers because math isn't my strong suit, then everybody pays $1 in and everybody's happy. And if we win $10,000, then we split that 10 ways, right? So I don't know where Dan gets off feeling like he has any stake in that at all, especially if you don't owe him any money from past dealings. So let's just read this final update here. How did this really do? After the Venmo request, I didn't respond right away. Instead, I sat on it for a couple days and really thought about everything. How we've been playing, the times Dan covered people, the unspoken system, all of it. Because if I'm being honest, it wasn't as clean cut as I always wanted it to be. Yeah, this was my ticket. But it's also true that over the past year, there were definitely times I was included in group tickets without immediately paying, or when Dan just waved it off like, you're good. So I decided to at least hear him out. We met up after work, and it didn't start great. He came in hot, said I was acting like I did this all alone, that I benefited from the group dynamic when it suited me, and now that I won, I suddenly wanted to draw a hard line. I told him I understand why he felt that way, but this wasn't a group ticket. That's when he said something that kind of struck a note. You didn't win because of the group, but you played because of the group. And yeah, that's true, because I probably wouldn't even have bought that ticket if we didn't have the whole group routine going. So I made a decision, not because I thought I legally owed him anything, but because I wanted to be able to look at the situation and not feel like I took advantage of something. I told him I would give him $2,000 and not the $6,000. Not an equal split, but something that acknowledged the history without pretending this was a group win. He didn't take it well, at all. He said it was insulting that I was trying to buy my conscience on a discount, and that if I really believed in what I was saying, I'd split it properly. I told him I wasn't doing that, and that if he felt like I owed him more, we could just agree to disagree. And that's when things escalated. He went back to the office the next day and told everyone I was screwing him over. Not just him, he brought up all the times he's covered people, made it sound like I'd been freeloading for a year and now hit a win and ran. Now people who were neutral before started picking sides harder. A couple coworkers straight up told me I should have just split it to keep the peace. And one said, you just cost yourself your reputation here over a few grand. And then HR got involved. I wish I was kidding. Apparently, Dan filed a complaint saying there was a financial dispute creating a hostile work environment. So now I'm sitting in a meeting explaining how I bought a lottery ticket on my own time and why I don't think I owe a coworker money. It was as ridiculous as it sounds. HR basically told us to keep it out of the workplace and avoid discussing it further. At that point, I was over it completely. So I made one final move. I brought in cash, $2,000, put it in an envelope, walked up to Dan, handed it to him and said, this is the last conversation we're having about this. Take it or don't, but I'm done, and walked away. He didn't open it right away, but later that day, it was gone from his desk. So yeah, he took it. No thank you, no acknowledgement, nothing. Since then, we don't talk, like, at all. The office is still a little weird, but it's starting to settle. Some people think I handled it fairly. Others still think I should have split it fully. And here's the part I didn't expect. I don't feel great about it, but I also don't feel guilty anymore. It's more like clarity. Like I finally accepted that there wasn't a version of this where everyone walks away happy. I kept most of the money, lost a friendship, made work awkward for a while, and probably showed people a side of me they didn't expect. Would I handle it differently knowing how it played out? Honestly, I don't know. Because if I gave in completely, I think I'd resent it. And if I gave nothing, then I'd question myself. So yeah, that's the ending. Messy, expensive, and not nearly as fun as winning the ticket should have been. Okay, well, that was definitely interesting. And if you're anything like me, you finally decided to pick up a calculator and take $48,000 and divide it by 8 to realize that it's $6,000. I told you math wasn't my strong suit. Regardless, now I know for sure that Dan was just trying to look for an even split when it wasn't necessarily warranted. I think, if anything, making sure that whatever amount of money you owed Dan was squared away should have been a priority, but I don't see why Dan thinks that you deciding to buy a ticket on your own time means that you suddenly owe a split to him. Because again, lottery tickets are by chance. So you take 8 people and you buy a ticket, split it evenly, and then whatever you win, you split evenly. But you're the only person who had any stake in that particular ticket purchase. So as far as your little lottery scheme is concerned, I don't think you owe anybody any money. And unless you owe Dan $6,000 from him basically telling you you're good a few times, or maybe other occasions that you hadn't paid him back for, you don't owe him a split of the ticket. I think it's a ridiculous thing to get all bent out of shape over, but it doesn't surprise me. I mean, this whole thing sounds like gambling addiction times 8. And I don't know if the other aspects of the lottery thing were happening while people are on the clock, but that doesn't sound legal. And if it's legal, I could definitely understand why HR wasn't happy about it. So it sounds like we all just need to keep our gambling to ourselves and maybe just take a break for a while. And definitely don't gamble with Dan. That's my take. Let me know your take in the comments down below. Thanks for tuning in.